In times of crisis, like we're seeing today with the coronavirus or COVID-19, we oftentimes see the worst and the best of people. In times of crisis, we see worry, anxiety, stress, fear. Lots of strong emotions come out of that, and when those emotions come, it oftentimes leads to irrational thinking, irrational behaviors. What that ultimately means is that oftentimes in crisis is why we see some people behaving maybe at their worst. At the same time, it's during crisis that we oftentimes see people being at their absolute best. I wanted to take some time today to talk about that notion of the absolute best. What do people do? What are leaders doing that demonstrate the absolute best to help combat or to mitigate some of the worst or some of the fears and anxieties and worries and the stress that we see both maybe in our families or in our communities or in the workplace? A quote that I've often heard leaders say is this: people will forgive you for not being the leader you should be, but they won't forgive you for not being the leader you claim to be. Interesting thought about that is, and I think there's some truth to that, this notion of oftentimes individuals will be understanding when leaders fall short a little bit or struggle, especially in time of crisis. What we're less tolerant of or less understanding of is leaders who proclaim to be something, who say they're something, and then they don't behave consistently with that. And especially in a time of crisis, that adds to anxiety, that adds to worry and fear and stress. I thought I would take a few minutes today to share 3 fundamental principles with you that stem from the concept of servant leadership that can help us be the best even in a difficult time, that can help us bring out the best in others in difficult and challenging and in many ways unprecedented times. During this time, there are 3 principles that I think will help us navigate through crisis. I would suggest to you, not only in crisis though, everyday life. The notion is living consistently no matter what. And during crisis, can we rely on those values, those core principles to bring out the best in us and in others? So let me share. Here are the 3 principles. 1, assume the best in others. During a time of crisis, oftentimes we can be pessimistic. We can be negative. We can look and only see the worst. This is a time when great leaders, when servant leaders see and find the best. They assume the best in others. They look for the best. They assume positive intent. We don't fill in blanks. In other words, things we don't know or we don't understand, we don't fill it in with negative thoughts, with negative intentions or our assumptions, which are oftentimes negative. But we assume the best in people. We give people the benefit of the doubt. We give people credit. We encourage them and create a space for them to bring out the best in people. A great leader exhibits hope and optimism in everything they do. If we're assuming the best in others, we project that and portray that to others, that we project hopefulness and we project optimism and enthusiasm and excitement for what's coming ahead of us, even when we may not see it right now. Servant leaders can see past this moment. They can see past the crisis, while at the same time dealing with and effectively handling and managing the crisis situation itself. So we can do both. I love this statement. It says, one cannot champion a plan for future success without believing that the organization's employees share in that optimism and genuinely want to do their respective parts in order to see the company thrive. If we're going to be a champion of success, then we need to believe in our employees. We need to believe in our organization. So the first principle is assume the best in others, to assume the best in people, to assume the best in our employees. The second principle is show that you care. That may seem so simple and kind of plain and basic, but fundamentally, during a time of crisis, this is what people need to see and hear, but more importantly, feel. They need to feel there's a sense of genuine care and concern and interest There's a genuine care and concern and interest in mine and others' well-being. Are we doing okay? In other words, are we visible? Are we present as leaders? Can they see us? Do they hear us? Are we not just talking to others, but are we listening as well? So not just simply making statements and sharing information. Are we listening and asking for people to share? Are we giving them an opportunity to share their experiences and how they're feeling and how are they doing? Are you deliberate in how you communicate that sense of care? Are you saying the right things at the right times in a way which is easily understood? That means we have to be interacting regularly. And during a time of crisis, especially right now when many of us are at home, we're not together physically, obviously. How do we stay connected via phone or video is obviously a big strategy right now. How do we utilize that to stay connected and not just let people check out, but to reach out, right? So not to check out, but to check in and see how are folks doing. Do you stand by your decisions even when met with resistance or facing possible scrutiny? So even in this time of crisis, are we making strong and wise and good decisions and standing by them? Are we showing care through that so we provide consistency? Are we providing predictability? Caring is showing a strong propensity for both obtaining and sharing information. So it's not just one way. It's not just simply telling, but it's asking and receiving. It's seeking after it. It's methodically, intentionally, on purpose, seeking other people's thoughts, ideas, opinions, perspectives, how they're feeling. So it's not just obtaining and sharing information, as well as having the courage to make the difficult yet necessary decisions. During this time, and in many cases during a time of crisis, there are difficult decisions that need to be made. And it's hard. I understand people are being laid off or furloughed or maybe even losing their jobs. Businesses are going out of business. There's tough things happening. And there isn't always great solutions. But can we assume the best in others? Can we show that we care? And third, can we be transparent? And can we be transparent consistently? The idea of transparency is not just, again, the sharing information, but asking, but can we be forthright with information? Or do people have to drag it out of us? Are people wondering, well, what did he mean by that? What did she say? What did she mean when she said that? Or are we being incredibly transparent and forthright with information, being articulate and being clear? Not using a lot of cliches or colloquialisms, not just making statements or phrases that we hear all the time. If you listen to a lot of folks today, a lot of leaders, oftentimes they'll talk for 5 or 10 minutes and we're like, I have no idea what they said. They said a bunch of words and I knew what all the words meant, but I have no idea what they're talking about or what they're trying to say. As leaders, can we be transparent and clear? And oftentimes that means we need to share details and facts. It also means there's times we have to share what we don't know. We have to be okay saying we don't know right now. We're not sure what's happening with it yet, but here's what we're doing to try to figure it out. Leaders are constantly faced with a multitude of internal and external factors which can quickly buck a positive trend of excellence. This notion that there are a lot of pressures around us, and not all of them are pushing us and encouraging us to be excellent or to be the best. Through transparency and consistency and predictability, are we willing to stand up against those pressures, to strive for excellence? Now is a great time. Crisis oftentimes opens up opportunities for creativity, for opportunity. Can we be optimistic and see through it to the other side and help others to see that? Can we help others to see the sense of hope, the sense of encouragement and optimism we talked about? This thought here, in times of crisis and uncertainty, you might be tempted to look past the very foundation on which your success stands, willfully forgoing parts of an effective decision-making process or give in to stakeholder or environmental pressures. And I love that thought because here's what the opposing thought is. Servant leaders acknowledge the potential ramifications certain pressures can cause, but they don't pander to them. Rather, they perform with agility while maintaining a code of conduct which is consistent with their positive mindset, the reaffirming message, and most importantly, their steady and transparent behaviors. What servant leaders do is we focus in on our core values and our core principles, and we live them out all the more. And we strive to encourage others to live out those core values of assuming the best, of caring for others, of transparency, and there's many other principles that we could think of. Those are the three that we're focusing on today. So let's remind ourselves that while trust may be hard to earn, it can feel virtually impossible to regain once that trust is damaged. When we assume the best, when we care for others, when we're transparent, we develop, we grow, we foster, we encourage trust. Trust is a foundational component in relationships, in the ability to be effective and successful. When we damage trust or lose it altogether, it is really difficult to get it back. It's such hard work and it takes so much longer. It takes a short amount of time to lose trust and a long period of time to gain it. Trust is a core component in navigating our way through crisis. We need to know we can believe people. We need to know we can believe our leaders, that we can trust what they're saying is true. Just leave you this last thought. It says leaders who not only do what they say they are going to do, but also admit to mistakes and lessons learned in the process, will continue to humanize themselves in a way that garners patience and support, both of which can escalate a leader in the best and worst of times. I hope through this conversation today, through this video today, that we'll pause for a moment and think, are we being the best, the worst version of us? And will we step up and be the best version? And then assume the best in others, care for others, be transparent, so we encourage in a stressful, anxiety-ridden, worried kind of time that's filled with fear. In this time of crisis, can we be the people? Can we be a leader? Whether we have a title or position doesn't matter. Can we be a kind of person? Can we be a leader that steps up and is the best of people and not the worst? I hope this encourages you that tomorrow or whenever you hear this video, today, that you'll strive to be the best and bring out the best in others.